coding. And with me today, I have Antoinette Smith. How are you doing, Antoinette?
I'm good, Michael. How are you?
I am wonderful. It's always a pleasure to see you. I know you do a lot in the community. You have, you're co-founder of a large organization, and you're doing a lot. So I really wanted to and appreciate you taking the time to come and visit with us today. So tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do today.
Sure, yeah. So again, I'm Antoinette. I am an entrepreneur. I own a company called Rawley Smith here in the Twin Cities, and we do software development for different companies. In addition, I'm the co-founder of Blackson Technology Twin Cities, which just, along with the national organization, had a conference here, a Blackson Tech conference during Startup Week. And I think those are the...
BitCon 18.
BitCon
I remember the
18,
hashtag. I
yeah.
was there. So, yeah.
I think that's the major things.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us. One of the things we want to talk about is how we can get young people involved and interested in coding. And I know here we heard from the Minnesota STEM Partnership. We actually are finding organizations that specialize in coding. But we aren't going to do any coding programs. We're trying to find those groups and those participants, member organizations that will take on kids, and we'll try to direct the kids that are involved in other programs over there. However, you present a very unique and interesting perspective is you must have learned coding somewhere along the way, and now you're your own businesswoman. So can you share for our younger audience what your history or background was that got you inspired to pursue, to get to where you're at today in technology?
Yeah, I think I was really fortunate. My mother and my father both kind of worked around computers. My mom was an administrative assistant, so she went from typewriters to like word processors. And we had one in the home because she did like side work, you know? So we had a computer in the home, so I was like familiar with computers. And then my dad was always like, he's a civil engineer, and he always had things he had to do with IT, so he was like familiar with like punch cards and stuff like that. So I think kind of having people that like were familiar, like my parents, and then having a computer in the home was kind of part of it. But I didn't really get into it until we got AOL. So AOL is a service.
Wait, the dial-up beep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, AOL is
Back in the day.
was an online service, probably still an online service. You can still have an AOL email address. So America Online is how we connected to the internet via a dial-up connection, which is very slow compared to what we have now. You could like try and look at an image, but then you would walk away until the image actually loaded. So it was super slow, but it was super exciting for me, especially like as an introverted child and just someone that like would sit at home and like read books, and then I could get on like the internet. And it was like my first kind of foray into social media and my first foray into like changing things on the internet, being able to like build a web page. And back then, like web pages were super simple. It was just like some HTML tags, and then you had inline CSS, and it was kind of like, I don't know, it was a free place to play. And so that's kind of like where it started.
Okay. So you matched your natural instinct for technology with kind of your artistic side of it too, right? Being able to create web pages. It's not just a nerdy thing. I mean, you have to have many skills to be able to develop software.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always say I'm not creative, but I'm actually creative. Like, I will literally like work on a PowerPoint presentation for hours because I find it fascinating. And like coding is also like you're creating things. Like you're creating a web page or you're creating an algorithm, which is just instructions for how to do something. And if you're creative and you are not like really artistic, but you kind of like building things, I think coding is definitely like a thing that you might want to get involved in.
Yeah, yeah. Today, you know, technology has changed way since AOL, right? So we don't have dial-up. But many of our students, they have access to internet, but sometimes it's at school, sometimes it's at the library, or sometimes it's just at, you know, I know many McDonald's and other retail organizations have free Wi-Fi. So sometimes access to the internet is a little bit difficult. If you could just share a little bit for our younger audience, what types of tools, how could they build something on their own laptop or on their phone? Is there a way to create a web page locally on their laptop or phone without the internet?
Wow, so on phones, I don't know. Probably, but I feel like it would be difficult. I haven't looked into that. But on your laptop, definitely. So you don't need an internet connection to run a web page. You need an internet connection to run a web page that's hosted somewhere else. But on your own machine, you can still write HTML, and you can actually like create a file that's called like index.html, put some HTML tags in it, and then if you're on a Windows machine, or maybe even if you're on a Mac, just double click on that icon of the file, and then it opens in your browser, and there's like a web page. But the idea, though, is that a lot of coders actually use the internet to figure out how to do these things. So that's kind of the hard part. So first, you would want to have like a book. There's so many books out there that you can get. Like go to Half Price Books. Tons of books that are super cheap about web development. They're a little older, but they're what you need because the fundamentals have not changed. So
Sure,
yeah.
sure. And I know even in their high schools or middle schools or elementary schools, now some of the libraries have coding books
Oh,
too.
for
So, I
sure.
mean, they can even go locally or the public library.
Yeah.
I was just researching some other information. I found there was HTML and other books out there. So what would be the best languages, or what software languages would you suggest that a young person would learn? And then what should they really look at? What's the end game? What would be the best language for them to learn so in 5 years from now, they would have all the skills in software development?
Yeah, I wish that there was a a magic answer for that. The fact is that so JavaScript is big, JavaScript is huge, and that's actually pretty good because anyone can write JavaScript. So remember, you don't have an internet connection, you can also write JavaScript files locally and run them. So that's a good one to learn because a lot of people, you don't need the internet, and everyone's using it. Node.js, which is server side, uses it. Client side frameworks use it. A framework is it's a library. A library is a bunch of code that allows you to do some things.
Sure.
So being able to use those libraries and being able to just know the syntax of JavaScript is probably the best place to be right now.
I would agree with that because I learned JavaScript a long, long time ago it's probably JavaScript 1.0, of
Yeah.
course, before punch cards. But JavaScript is actually very powerful. It can run, you can create data types, like you said, algorithms, and solve problems. So
Yep.
I would definitely give a big plus to JavaScript as a good intermediate language that they could pursue. So tell me just a little bit about what the professionals are using today, and if you can share how you would feed, if you've ever worked in any DevOps type environments or any corporate or other major Java type languages. If you can share your experience or opinion on any of those higher level languages.
Sure, yeah. I've worked in a lot of languages. So I worked in Java, Java 6, and it's a perfectly fine language. They're always updating it. Java 8 has a lot of really cool features. I worked in .NET. Right now, .NET Core is super cool. I've really enjoyed working in that. I've done JavaScript frameworks like Angular and React. And then what else? Oh, PHP. PHP runs a bunch of websites. You may find some people that are like, oh, PHP isn't a real language, but it's totally a real language, and lots of people use it. So,
Sure.
So I've done PHP too.
Man, what haven't you done, I guess, in terms
COBOL.
of languages? I've done
Yeah,
COBOL.
you've done COBOL.
That's crazy, yeah. I've done COBOL, and by the way, I've done punch cards. Probably
Oh,
might have
wow.
been shoulder to shoulder with your dad back in the day. So, but I did start young, so just in case. Yeah, so no, that's pretty fascinating. In terms of the work that you do, would you suggest that a young person learn on their own, obviously, right? So they should follow up on these internet resources, find the language of the free stuff, go to the library. But as it relates to their education, should a young person pursue getting one of three things? Should they just be getting a certificate in Java or JavaScript, because you can get certified, right? And then you can go and get a bachelor's degree, a 4-year degree or something like that in software or computer science. And then you can just be self-taught. And then I want your straight opinion, because everybody does it differently.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on what type of education should I pursue, as I go through high school and put my development plan together?
Okay, yeah, so this is obviously my personal opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't have a computer science degree. I have a degree in technical communication. I do have a minor in computer science because I was kind of interested in it, but I didn't want to spend my entire education learning it. It just wasn't really for me. It's highly theoretical. I do have a master's in software engineering, which is more about the application of computer science, and that was the thing I was most interested in. However, you can totally self-teach yourself all of these things. I think one of the things, especially in the Twin Cities, if you're planning to stay here, that's important is just kind of knowing how development works like as a team. So a lot of what people are looking for right now is, can you work in a team? Like, and can you follow our processes? And I think that solo coders, especially people that want to just write code all by themselves, are not going to do so well in this economy and future economies, because software is getting just more and more complicated in a way that one person can't build it all. So I think that's important. But like whether you do computer science, you could totally do some other major that you really love, and you could also just kind of like learn to code on the internet, things like Treehouse and Code Academy and that sort of thing. And the thing is that like you'll have like the college background of like being able to learn things, and then you'll have like the practical application of like seeing how things are built. Because the things that Code Academy does is it kind of shows you how to structure your code, which is important when you're trying to get a job, because there are certain things that tech companies are still not good at actually training people on. And so being able to know a few of those things is super useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of salary and benefits and all the other, you know, the grown-up things that we typically, you know, pursue, the money that you can make as an independent business person, or the money that you can make going to work for a major company or a small company. Share your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Developers make a lot of money right now. Software engineers are making a lot of money, and I think they will continue to for a while. I think from a financial perspective, if you're not really sure what you want to do, it's good to just say, oh yeah, I'm going to be a coder. Because the fact is that you can move through all types of different industries with with coding experience. And also, the good thing about working in a company is health insurance. Health insurance is way less expensive, and typically you get better care because like your employer is just able to kind of cover a lot more than you can independently. I think the most frustrating thing I found as a person who has to deal with their own health insurance is the cost, and then just finding out that it's just nowhere near as good as what I had when I was with a company. So those are the things to think about. However, I have a lot of freedom. I have a lot more freedom than at a company. Like I don't have to conform to a culture that maybe makes me uncomfortable. And I get to stay at home a lot, which I really like, because I hate driving in the winter here. So yeah.
In Minnesota, we do have that snow to deal with, though.
Yes.
And parking and all the other issues that go along with
Exactly.
that. So, yeah, no, thank you for your opinion on that, because that's always been the struggle is, you know, you develop this creative talent, and then, you know, do you go wing it on your own? Do you moonlight? Or do you know, create a longer term plan where you might go work for a company, get yourself established, get health care, because we know with the recent elections, you know, health care is a big, you know, it's an important thing.
Yeah.
And then make your decisions along the way. So you have, what you're saying is you don't have to just follow a straight path. No. You can actually build your own portfolio, build your own career, and then use software as really the money-making tool to advance yourself, you know, as you become an adult and move forward. Before we break, though, is there anything that you would like to say about any organizations, or can you tell us a little bit about the recent BitCon and how it maybe might relate to the coding aspect and entrepreneurs? Do you have anything you'd like to share in that regard?
No, I don't.
I'll throw you for a loop.
Yeah.
We're going to cut this one.
Okay,
by the way,
thank
you.
you. That's good.
We'll make sure that we cut this part out of it. Hopefully,
Okay.
we'll do the fade to black. But so the purpose of actually asking you that was, you know, when we go to conferences, you know, we come together, and I think the biggest thing out of that was you had talked about being able to work as a team, right? And so to host a major conference like the great BitCon 18 that just happened, you had to work with a whole team of people. Were all the people here locally, or were they across the United States?
Right, yeah, the BitCon. So BitCon was officially the national Blacks in Tech and not the Twin Cities chapter. So it was actually organized by people in many different states, California, Ohio, I think Pennsylvania.
So that teamwork, because I think one thing that you said earlier about coding was really about teamwork. So you can work in isolation, but really you also have to be able to work with other people. And that's really going to determine your success levels, right? So you can stay isolated, be creative, or you can really grow. So we really appreciate BitCon picking, you know, the Twin Cities. We appreciate you as being a co-founder of the local chapter as well, because I think it's organizations like that that are going to move the ball forward in the Twin Cities. In the Twin Cities right now, I think we're the unemployment level, I mean, they're looking for people, you know, with technology skills. So part of the purpose of the Minnesota STEM partnership is to move younger kids along that pipeline earlier, because by the time they reach a higher grade level, you know, they've already started to get other activities and be focused elsewhere. So, you know, it's a longer term play, but bringing BitCon to the Twin Cities, I think, was just absolutely incredible.
Cool.
So thank you all for bringing that here. My last question really surrounds any other activities that you have. I know that you've been involved with an organization in North Minneapolis called Sisters in Technology. You know, you took a preview and assisted there. But grassroots initiatives in codings, how could an adult or a parent or a technical person, a professional that, you know, kind of busy lives and stuff like that, do you think that it's a wise investment to start a coding club?
I mean, a coding club for like children or for or for adults?
Young people.
Young people, okay. I think that it's a great idea if you can make a coding club happen. So the things that we have going on in the Twin Cities are, you know, we have Code Savvy, which is an umbrella organization that does coder dojos, which I think are really cool, and they kind of have like a set thing that they do, and they execute it really well. However, unfortunately, I think they don't reach as much of our demographic or people of color demographic. That would be great. Is BDPA
Well,
still?
I was going to say that's where BDPA, you know, Black Data Processing Associates comes into play. They run a spring program that teaches them those languages that you were talking about. Very productive program. It's kind of one of the unsung, quiet organizations, but they're pretty powerful in terms of the actual coding, the kids' ability to code as they deliver. But you've also got to scale up. They're a completely volunteer organization too, and that in and of itself, you know, has
it's
challenges.
Difficult,
Yeah,
for sure. No, I mean, I have literally been in conversations about like coding clubs over the years so many times, and to my knowledge, none of them have ever gotten off the ground, any additional ones. I think it would be great. I think, again, like when it's a volunteer organization, people are so busy these days. People have their jobs, and their jobs often take a lot out of them, especially as knowledge workers. It's just kind of a different kind of work. And by the time you get to a weekend or a place where you have free time, you're kind of spent. So I think there's some challenges there. There's also challenges in like having space, you know. One of the things that I will mention, though, is there's a website called Glitch. And so when I used to volunteer at BDPA, the most frustrating thing that I found was like you go and you have this computer lab, which was donated to us, and it was great to have that. But it's like you get to the computers, and they're all Windows machines. Most developers here are on Macs, which are a completely different operating system. So you're a little unfamiliar. And then secondly, like the software you need isn't on there. And then thirdly, there's often like accounts and things that you need that kids just don't have. And so it's like, so now you have to either create a bunch of accounts for all of these children and then like store the passwords on sheets of paper.
Real secure. Right?
Yeah. But there is this new site called Glitch, and you can go to that site and you can just build an app. You can like have an app that's already there, and you can remix it, and then that basically like copies the code for you, and then you just do it in the browser. You don't have to be signed in, and you can see it. So I think like things like that are going to help with the one part about like the computer. I don't know what the computer is, and I'm like scared. But otherwise, I mean, I would love to do something like that. But it's like finding the time. Yeah.
No. Well, again, thank you for your volunteering with the many organizations and driving that ball forwards, as they say, so that our kids have a great opportunity to have fantastic careers and become great entrepreneurs like yourself and many others. So thank you, Antoinette. We appreciate your time for coming here today.
Yeah, thanks.